Hello, everyone. I'm Eric Hyam, Technical Editor with Microwave Journal, and I'd like to welcome you to the next installment of our Technical Education webinar series. This webinar is entitled Key Aspects of Modern Wi-Fi Design, and it's sponsored by RFMW and Qorvo. And today's presentation will be given to us by Jeremy Foland of Qorvo. This webinar will delve into advanced Wi-Fi architectures, spotlighting the integration of bulk acoustic wave filters. These BAW filters enhance performance in dense network environments and are pivotal for next generation Wi-Fi technology. It will also explore the benefits of nonlinear front-end module solutions, focusing on their role in improving range and reducing power consumption. In this webinar, attendees will discover strategic insights into the product development and design considerations necessary to meet the challenges of modern Wi-Fi demands. This webinar is essential for designers looking to stay ahead in the evolving landscape of wireless communication technology. But before we begin, let me cover a few logistics. If you'd like to download the presentation slides for reference, you'll find a copy in the handouts window. We'll have time for questions after the presentation. To ask one, please type it into the Q&A window anytime. This presentation is being recorded, so it'll be available to watch again and recommend to your colleagues. Now, let me introduce our speaker. From component manufacturing to end product development, Jeremy Foland's experience spans 2 decades in wireless connectivity. As an active member of standards organizations, he brings a broad perspective to his role as Senior Product Marketing Manager for the Connectivity Components Business Unit at Qorvo. And with that, let me turn things over to Jeremy.
Thanks, Eric. Welcome, everybody. And I also wanted to thank RFMW for hosting this and allowing Qorvo to tell you about our technology and products. All right, so we're going to talk about the key aspects of modern Wi-Fi design. So I'm going to start off with just a general market overview about trends in the industry and where we are on the technology roadmap. And then we're going to talk about common Wi-Fi product architectures and how nonlinear FEMs and BAW filters fit into those architectures. And lastly, I'll talk about specific Qorvo product solutions that meet those needs. All right, so what I'm showing here are 2 charts provided by Yole Group, a market research firm. The chart on the left is for network infrastructure devices, millions of units of network systems. So these are your access points, your routers, gateways, extenders, the infrastructure part of the equation. And then the other chart here is the mobile phone market. So these are the 2 things that drive the technology trends. So the colors indicate the level of Wi-Fi, the generation. So let's focus on Wi-Fi 7. So Wi-Fi 7 hit the market this past calendar year, 2024, and is starting to ramp up, and it will estimated to be the predominant technology by the end of the decade. Many network infrastructure providers are providing dual band Wi-Fi. These are just some factors that are kind of affecting the rollout of Wi-Fi 7. So we're seeing a lot of dual band Wi-Fi 7 roll out into the market. Primarily for cost reasons, but another reason is 6 gigahertz spectrum availability, and I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. So Wi-Fi 6 started around 2020, and actually prior to 2020, and has been growing over the last few years, and it is going to continue to be a predominant technology at shipping millions of units for the foreseeable future. So Wi-Fi 7 is not going to instantly turn off Wi-Fi 6. There's going to continue to be shipments of both technologies. And one last point, Wi-Fi 8, it's not really completely defined yet, but we're thinking that's going to hit the market in about 2028 in the infrastructure leading the device makers, the phone in later 2029. All right, so let's talk about spectrum availability because it's a key driver to the Wi-Fi experience that you get around the world. This map is provided by Wi-Fi Alliance. It's a great tool they have, that the service they give to the Wi-Fi industry, and they keep it updated. And there's the link there on the page there if you want to see the latest. For instance, I pulled this just a few weeks ago, and already I know Egypt and Tunisia have now gone to full adoption. So they've actually approved their 6 gigahertz spectrum. So what you see here on the bottom is a list of the channels. So over here you have your 5 gigahertz, and then up here are your 6 gigahertz channels. So the 5 gigahertz band is and has been available throughout the world for many years now, 10, 15 years or so. 6 gigahertz, the full, so part of the world only allows half the band, part of the world allows the full band. So the green indicates countries that have released the full 6 gigahertz band for unlicensed use, i.e. Wi-Fi and other technologies. So it is predominantly the Americas, a few countries in Central Asia, and then South Korea is another key country. Other parts of the world have only released the lower part of the 6 gigahertz band, Uni 5. And so you see big chunks of the world that have that. And then there's other discussions you see here throughout Europe where you see it striped. And that's where they've released the 5 gigahertz, but they're talking about releasing additional spectrum, the upper part of the 6 gigahertz band. More spectrum, higher density you can have, and just a better overall Wi-Fi experience. Notably, some large population centers on Earth, India and China, currently have no 6 gigahertz availability. So they tend to have some different architectures. But we're going to be talking about the rest of the world here, where tri-band architectures are kind of the coin of the realm, as they say. So I'm going to focus on customer premise equipment, CPE. So these are your routers, your access points, your infrastructure, routers, access point, gateways, whatever you want to call them. And so operating in all 3 bands. So I'm going to focus in on one band. Let's just focus in on the 6 gigahertz band, just to explore the makeup of each band. So you have the Wi-Fi SoC, that's what's generating the Wi-Fi signal, the Wi-Fi front end modules, filters, and out through the antenna. So the 6 gigahertz, in this case, Wi-Fi SoC, generates a transmit signal. It travels out through the PA portion of the FEM. FEM stands for front end module, and it is a combination of a PA, a low noise amplifier, and a transmit receive switch. So the transmit signal comes out of the SoC, out through the switch, and out to the antenna. And then on the receive side, you come in the antenna through that same filter and through the switch, and then back in through the receive chain. So what's shown here would be a 1-by-1 solution. It's not a very common architecture for infrastructure. You see it more commonly in client devices, phones, or other IoT devices. There is some customer premise equipment that will have 2 chains. This would be a 2-by-2 solution, 2 transmit and 2 receive antennas or chains. And most common, I would say, of the designs that we see that we work with customers on are 4-by-4. That's 4 transmit chains and 4 receive chains. And that's on each band. So right here, we're just looking at the 6 gigahertz band. But in reality, that's just a small component of the solution. And you have the same architecture duplicated in 6 gigahertz, 5 gigahertz, and 2.4 gigahertz. So this would be 4-by-4 in 6, 4-by-4 in 5 gigahertz, and 4-by-4 in 2.4 gigahertz. So what we would call this is a 4-by-4 plus 4-by-4 plus 4-by-4 solution. Nobody calls it that. It's too cumbersome. Typically, we'll shorthand this to 4 plus 4 plus 4. What you don't want to do is call it a 4-by-4-by-4, because that's not a thing. It's 4 plus 4 plus 4. All right. Not every device out there, infrastructure device out there, is 4 plus 4 plus 4. You'll commonly see providers carve out some of the bands for cost reasons or other architectural compatibility reasons. So you'll see 2 plus 2 plus 4 or 2 plus 2 plus 2. These are also very common architectures in the marketplace. So for the purposes of this basic conversation, we're just going to talk about the most common architecture, the 4+4+4. And it's a lot of components here, right? We got all these Wi-Fi radios, and we have 12 FEMs and filters in this solution. And I was actually at a customer one time, and they said, well, that's too much cost. We're just going to strip the filters out. We don't need filters. Well, obviously that's not a good decision. And that's actually the genesis of this talk. Was I wanted some content to use to explain to customers why you do need these filters. So let's just say we didn't have filters. What's going to happen? So here we are. We're going to download some big file, and our 6 gigahertz transmitter passes the 6 gigahertz spectrum out, and it transmits out over the air, right? I'm only showing one chain here, antenna chain. Okay, so in your mind's eye, you may be picturing, so again, here's the 5 and 6 gigahertz spectrum. This beautiful, perfectly digital signal, 320 megahertz signal just blasting out on channel 31. But that's not how the world works. The world isn't digital. So if you look at the IEEE 802.11 spec, which defines what these signals look like, you'll see the spectrum mask. And what you see is this is all relative to the peak signal. So you'll see that it actually defines the strength of the signals as they spread away from the actual channel edge. And what you'll find is that as far as 320 megahertz away, there's a fairly strong, 40 dB less lower signal than the main traffic signal. So it's not just this nice clean signal that's transmitting right in the middle of your band. It's actually spreading out, again, as much as 320 megahertz away from the intended channel. So you take this picture and think about what that looks like on the channel map. And, it's not this nice 320 megahertz digital signal like we talked about. It actually spreads. And when you look at it on this channel map to scale, you see that we're spreading a significant amount of Wi-Fi energy out into adjacent bands. And you see here, if you're on the low end of the band, you're taking the entire upper part of the 5 gigahertz band. So what does that look like on the radio level? So you have this 6 gigahertz signal coming out, transmitting. And what do you have right next to, so at the same time, your 6 gigahertz energy is coming, your 5 gigahertz energy is coming out at the same time. So you're constantly transmitting your intended 6 gigahertz signal, but you're also putting out a significant amount of 5 gigahertz energy out into the air. And what do you have located directly next to that 6 gigahertz transmitter? A very sensitive, high quality 5 gigahertz receiver. That receiver is designed to detect low energy, low noise, very low signal strength transmissions. Why? Because you want to be able to walk away from your access point and still have that receiver pick up the signal. It's designed to pick up that low strength energy. So that energy is just going to pass right into the antenna, right through the low noise amplifier, and right into your 5 gigahertz receiver. And that's going to cause problems. That's going to cause noise. And what kind of problems does it have? So the whole thing we're trying to do here is, as those received signals come in to the radio, you're trying to resolve which signal this is on your IQ plot in your QAM map. So when you have noise, you can't resolve these small modulation schemes, and you're actually going to drop the rate back. So one of the key features of Wi-Fi 7 is 4K QAM and these higher order high-speed communications. And without filters, you're going to impair or basically render impossible transmissions of high order, high-speed communications at the same time. Another aspect of Wi-Fi is it's a very polite algorithm. It won't talk over people, unlike me. So anytime you want to go do a transmission, it's listen before talk. So the transmitter is going to say, hey, is the airspace open? Yes. Okay, I can talk. Well, if that 6 gigahertz transmitter is casting energy onto the 5 gigahertz band, the 5 gigahertz transmitters are going to think, oh, someone's talking, I'm just going to wait. It's called blocking, receiver blocking. So the radio will shut down and wait for the 5 gigahertz client or whatever device is out there transmit happens to be the own access point. And that's what we call self-interference, where it blocks the other radios on the same device. Another aspect of Wi-Fi 7, another key feature is MLO, or multi-link operation. And if you're transmitting simultaneously in 5 and 6 gigahertz, those bands will overlap each other if it's not filtered, and will contaminate the signal, which will impair the receive on your client devices. So without filters, you're not going to get all of the features that Wi-Fi 7, frankly, Wi-Fi 6E as well, are intended to deliver. So what happens when you have a filter in there? You do get your 5 gigahertz or your 6 gigahertz energy is going to pass right through the filter, but that 5 gigahertz energy is going to be stopped at the filter and not make it out into the air to then transmit over to your 5 gigahertz receiver and cause this self-interference chain reaction. And I walked you all through on the 6 gigahertz transmission, but the exact same thing happens in 5 gigahertz. You have your 5 gigahertz transmitter transmitting, the 6 gigahertz energy comes in and it is stopped at the filter. So that is why filters are definitely a necessity, especially for Wi-Fi 6E and 7. So what I showed you before was kind of an overhead view, looking at an actual access point. So this view here is we're looking at a frequency domain. So we have frequency along the x-axis and power density on the x-axis. And what we have here is, this is a 5 gigahertz transmission, and this is the 6 gigahertz transmission. So the blue line, the light blue line here on the top is if you didn't have a filter. So this is the 5 gigahertz band, and you can see that this transmission energy, just like that earlier plot I showed, is leaking over into the 6 gigahertz band. What the filter is going to do, it's going to attenuate that undesired energy in the 6 gigahertz band from your 5 gigahertz transmission and punch it below that receive sensitivity level so it doesn't interfere with the 6 gigahertz transmitter. And then same thing goes for 6 gigahertz. If we're transmitting on the channel 31, nice 320 megahertz channel, you can see, just like I showed in that other plot, the energy would be leaking over into other usable transmission bands. But inserting a BAW filter here will attenuate that signal down so it doesn't interfere with that radio. All right, so looking back again at the 4x4 solution, of course, this is what everybody should be doing: high quality, high spatial stream transmit to get the best Wi-Fi performance. But as I was alluding to earlier, many manufacturers and retailers are putting out platforms that are dual band Wi-Fi 7. So in the case of dual band Wi-Fi 7, you don't need as much filter content because you don't have that self interference. There's no 6 gigahertz radio right adjacent to it. So for dual band platforms, you don't necessarily need that 5 gigahertz bandpass filter on the 5 gigahertz band. In the majority of solutions, 2.4 gigahertz still does need a filter. And let's talk about why the 2.4 gigahertz band needs a filter. So this first type of filter that Qorvo has is our Edge Boost filter series. And this is highlighted to operate in FCC. So US, Canada, and Australia uses FCC rules. So there is a rule about adjacent or out of band transmission. So there's other technologies that exist outside that are licensed outside the just outside the 2.4 gigahertz band, and the FCC has limited the amount of energy that you can cast into the 2.4 gigahertz band around the usable license band. So what just similar to just like we did on those other filters in 5 gigahertz, you attenuate those signals out of the band by pushing that shoulder down. And what that allows you to do is, you see here, this gray here, in order to meet this minimum power level here, or the maximum power level that's allowed by the FCC, you can only transmit at 21 dBm in this case, where you start to hit that density limit of out of band noise. By filtering and attenuating that signal down, you can bring that transmission energy up and still maintain that low level of energy into the adjacent band. So what does that higher energy do? That gives you more range. So by filtering, you can really increase the range that your 2.4 gigahertz band can utilize. And you get nice flat power curve across the entire channel, and you don't have to compromise on your edge channels. So that's in the FCC domain, but worldwide, there are technologies that utilize spectrum just outside the 2.4 gigahertz band. While the FCC has very stringent close-in specifications and regulations, there's other technologies around there that you want to limit interference with just for technology's sake. There's cellular bands that operate just below and above, and you don't want your Wi-Fi radio, regardless of where you are in the world, interfering with those adjacent signals. So that's what we call our coax boost filters for 2.4 gigahertz, where you can put this around your Wi-Fi device, put that on your transmit filter, and that will protect you from adjacent, actually it will protect on transmission adjacent cellular, from interfering with adjacent cellular signals. All right, so that is the filter component. So now I'm going to talk about another key component of modern Wi-Fi's designs, and that is nonlinear FEMs. So nonlinear FEMs require digital pre-distortion to operate effectively. And so that requires Qorvo to work very closely with the chipset vendors. So we need to kind of tailor our FEM so that it works with the DPD algorithms that are present in the modern Wi-Fi chipsets. So what this is accomplishing is, if we're looking at our, this is here a 16 QAM IQ plot, and right, what the goal of the Wi-Fi is, signaling is, the receiver needs to figure out which of these dots am I hitting, right? And without DPD, the error is such that you can't tell which of these spots it is, because they start to grow and overlap. That the size of that circle, that's EVM, or error vector magnitude. So what DPD does is it will shrink that error vector magnitude and allow it to resolve to a tighter dot, so you can actually differentiate these various symbols to understand what the modulation scheme is, modulation code is. So that's kind of on, if you're looking at the actual IQ. And so this is a plot of error vector magnitude versus the size of that dot is your y-axis versus the transmit power. So as you just generally, as you start to transmit higher and higher power, you start to get more and more distortion there. And so with a nonlinear FEM uncorrected, this error vector magnitude, the EVM, tends to hump up a little bit, but the DPD algorithm can correct for that and give you a nice flat or linear floor until you hit the saturation point of the device. So that's what DPD is doing. But you don't want to use DPD to just correct for a bad FEM. That's not the goal here. So in traditional linear FEM design, we've always had to balance the linear power and the power efficiency. So what we've done with nonlinear FEMs is we tilt the scales towards the power efficiency. And that's the key here. We tilt the scale towards power efficiency, but still deliver you with linear FEM performance by using the DPD. So yes, DPD will correct for a poorly designed FEM. That's true. But DPD is, extra work. It's more complicated. It's a little more tricky to implement. So if you're going through all that trouble, you want to get something for it. And what you're getting is power savings. So by backing off the current going into that FEM and allowing DPD to correct for some of that linearity, we're able to produce much more power efficient FEMs. So this is one of our 2 gig products, the 4209, and it saves about 0.4 watts per FEM versus the linear equivalent. So it is a significant, and remember, think of all those FEMs that are on that tri-band platform. That really adds up. You can save between 20 and 25% of your FEM power budget by going from linear FEMs to nonlinear FEMs. So the benefit is it's all about power saving. So by reducing that power, obviously you're just using less power. That's saving money on its own. It's greener just on its own right. You're using less power. That's good for the environment. Around the world, especially in Europe, there are very stringent regulations on successive generations of products consuming less and less power, even in the idle state. And so nonlinear FEMs give you a way of marching towards along that regulatory roadmap. Also, less power means you can save money in your power supplies, smaller, cheaper power supplies. And it also allows you to shrink your design if you're generating less heat. And that shrinking the design also comes from eliminating expensive thermal mitigation hardware, fans, expensive heat sinks, smaller form factors. These are all benefits of nonlinear FEMs, properly designed nonlinear FEMs. So those are the general technology. So now I want to talk specifically about Qorvo solutions that match up with these needs. So picking the right FEM solution starts with understanding which SoC you have. The different SoC vendors, Wi-Fi SoC vendors, have different signaling to the FEMs, and also we have to pair up the DPD algorithms to get them to work right. So the different chipset vendors have different FEMs. So one of the key things you need to understand when you are selecting your FEMs is which chipset vendor you're working with. So the FEMs I'm showing here, the 4209, 4509, and 4609, are designed to work with Qualcomm and MediaTek SoCs. So the second number here is the band 2, 5, and 6. And then on the filter side, those filters we talked about earlier in the presentation, we have the 5604, which is your 6 gigahertz bandpass filter, the 5503, which is your 5 gigahertz bandpass filter. And then for 2.4, remember those 2 kinds of filters I talked about, depending on where you are in the world, you're going to pick one of those, whether you're in the FCC region and you need that band edge support, or just general coexistence with other technologies. And Qorvo filters are all in industry standard packages, 1816 size. And then for 2.4, 1109 is where the industry has migrated to. So the other major pairing we have is with the Broadcom platforms. So we have a FEM pairing that goes with these with the Broadcom technology as well. That's the 4207, the 4507, and 4607 for each band 2, 4, 5, and 6 respectively. The filters don't change. You use the same filters, whichever chipset you use. For the Broadcom pairing, we also have a set of medium power FEMs. This is targeted at the European market where the transmit powers are a little lower. You don't need as much transmit power. We have a set of nonlinear FEMs for medium power that work as well, 4202 for 2 gig. And then we actually have a fairly unique solution where our 6 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz FEM, it's actually the same FEM, and it can transmit from Uni 1 to 8. So you can use the same part in both sockets. And again, the filter solution would be the same. For various reasons, some customers want to stick with linear FEMs. They are simpler to implement. So, and if you have the power budget, if you have the thermal capacity, they're certainly a viable solution. And of course, Qorvo has a full contingent of linear FEMs that work for Qualcomm and Broadcom as well. Also, if you need a front-end module that isn't even necessarily doing Wi-Fi for other 5 gigahertz devices or 6 or whichever band, the linear devices are a little simpler to utilize. So again, we have a full contingent of linear devices as well. We also have some alternate architecture filter solutions. So just like many customers split the 5 gigahertz band up, we have prepared filters to address a growing market where customers may wish to split the 5 and 6 gigahertz band into 2 parallel tracks. And that way you can transmit and receive independently and do MLO on the Uni 5 band and then the Uni 7 and 8 band and split that up if you wanted to make a quad band solution. We have existing, and these have been around for several years, the QPQ 1903, 1904. These are good for splitting up the 5 gigahertz band. For Wi-Fi 6, this was a very common implementation for the last, 6 or 8 years, where you split the 5 gigahertz band up into the lower and upper part, and that way allow for that simultaneous transmission and just higher throughput. So we have filters for that. And we also have, for 2.4 gigahertz, we kind of have a halvesy filter where you get the band edge on the lower edge and the upper edge is kind of just not filtered out. And that's for customers that want to put one filter and maybe ship internationally for US and Europe. We have one more filter in the portfolio that's of interest for this particular kind of architecture, and that's a QPQ 5501. And that filter actually passes through the Uni 4 spectrum. So Uni 4 is a slightly higher or a higher power. You have one extra high power 160 megahertz channel that's allowed. That's primarily in the US. So for dual band or tri-band without using 6 gigahertz, the QPQ 5501 is a viable solution. One of the challenges with Uni 4 is that it is so close to Uni 5. It's difficult to have filters that roll off appropriately and accommodate both Uni 4 and 5 without getting into complicated and expensive switching schemes. All right, so that is a brief overview of BAW filter technology and Qorvo solutions. So if anyone has any questions, I think you can pop those into the Q&A window. And I'm going to kick it over to Eric, if you want to hop back on and facilitate.
Great, thanks, Jeremy. And that's a great segue. That was a good presentation, certainly very informative and lots of good information there. So thank you for that. Now let's look at the audience questions. And please remember, you can still submit a question in the Q&A window. We've got some time. So let's get started with this question. You touched on this in the presentation, but what are the key differences between Wi-Fi 6, Wi-Fi 6E, and Wi-Fi 7 in terms of architecture and performance?
So Wi-Fi 6, 7. Okay, so let me go to, where's a good plot here? Let's go to maybe here. So Wi-Fi 6 is dual band. So you're only going to have 2.4 and 5 gigahertz. There were some tri-band where you split it apart, but Wi-Fi 6E introduced the 6 gigahertz band and allowed you to operate in all three of the bands. And then, but each one of those were independent and you couldn't kind of aggregate them together. Wi-Fi 7, with the advent of MLO, multi-link operation, allows you to simultaneously transmit on both for band aggregation. And another aspect is Wi-Fi is, as I mentioned, is a very polite protocol. It won't talk over people. So if you're on a very busy channel, if let's say you're in a 5 gigahertz channel in Wi-Fi 6, you just had to wait for that to free up. What Wi-Fi 7 gives you is you can connect to the 5 gigahertz and 6 gigahertz at the same time and utilize whichever channel is available at the given time of transmission. So it reduces latency is the key feature of what that MLO will help with.
Excellent. Thank you. The next one I'm sure is a common concern, a common question you've heard. How do these solutions coexist with LTE? Any system analysis for the signal quality?
So it depends on the band. I'm not sure if you're referring to the LTE frequencies that coexist inside the 6 gigahertz band. So obviously, that is really about the protocol, because if it's operating in the frequency itself, you can't filter out the wanted signal. So that's really about the protocols coexisting, the LTE protocol and the Wi-Fi protocol. And go to like an 802.18 meeting or something like that, and they'll talk about it ad nauseum. I think that's the right working group in IEEE. But that is a hot topic that is not solved at the hardware level for 6 gigahertz coexistence with LTE. Now, I did mention the coax boost filters, and there are some cellular bands that operate around Wi-Fi. So for those solutions, we've done a lot of analysis, and you get, I don't have the data here, but you get much better performance both of the Wi-Fi and of the LTE by filtering and shielding the two technologies from each other.
Great, thank you. Next one. What's the best filter technology that strikes a balance between in-band insertion loss and out-of-band blocking? Some vendors seem to have proprietary technology with regards to this.
Most vendors have proprietary. Qorvo has proprietary technology. And the obvious answer to that, I don't know who asked that question, maybe it was a softball, but BAW filter technology is the best trade-off between insertion loss and rejection. That's a no-brainer. And I would be fired if I told you anything else, but it happens to be true.
Well, excellent. We don't want to be the cause of
no, I kind of like,
another job. Yeah. What type of filters are in your products?
What type of filters? BAW filters, bulk acoustic wave filters, is our primary technology. We are constantly assessing other technologies, such as SAW for cost reductions, or temperature compensated SAW filters. So we're always looking at the other technologies, but in the grand scheme of things, as we analyze, we always come back to BAW technology. One of the benefits of BAW technology over other filter technologies is the BAW filter technology is really good at mitigating or diffusing the heat out of the filter. Because what can happen as a filter transmits, you get harmonic buildup, and the filter will self-heat. And when the temperature starts to swing a lot, the filtering performance will shift up and down in frequency. And obviously, if you're right there on the edge of the band, that can be problematic. So one of the key advantages of BAW filter technology is that our thermal responsiveness or our thermal sensitivity is very low. We don't shift around as much, just a few megahertz, versus other technologies, and even other bulk acoustic technology. Qorvo's bulk acoustic wave technology in particular is very good at diffusing heat and maintaining performance over temperature.
Good, thank you. You mentioned nonlinear FEMs in your presentation. Who are the competitors for nonlinear FEMs?
No one really. It's just us.
Good answer. Do you
It's an easy job. They just sell themselves, right?
Yeah, yeah. You offer reference designs for Broadcom, Qualcomm, and MediaTek for non and linear front-end modules?
So we don't have the reference designs ourselves because they're really centered around the chipset, the Wi-Fi chipset. But we do work very closely with the chipset vendors as they develop those reference designs. So when you go to any of those chipset vendors you discuss for linear or nonlinear, they have the reference designs integrated with their IP, with all their signaling technology. So there are designs that you can just kind of drop in and copy and get all the support files. And again, we work very closely, and that's one of the things that we have to do, is work very closely with the chipset vendors to get the content into those reference designs to make it easier for customers to pick it up and operate with them.
Excellent. Somewhat related to that, then, is what factors need to be checked for compatibility of nonlinear FEMs with chipset vendors?
The easiest way is a reference design. So we've already done all that compatibility assessment with the chipset vendor. So it is a partnership between us and the chipset vendor. Beyond that, we actually have designs that work off reference design. The easiest way is to ask your distributor or your Qorvo representative. RFMW can help align that compatibility, because in some cases, maybe it's not on the reference design, but it fits your design particularly well. And we can have a discussion between us, yourselves, and the chipset vendor about overcoming any incompatibilities between the linear or nonlinear FEM with a given chipset design.
Excellent, thank you. Do you offer tunable filters?
I'm going to claim ignorance on that one. Tunable filters. So that technology is generally used in the mobile. So we have that technology inside Qorvo. It's not inside my Wi-Fi portfolio, but I believe Qorvo has that technology. I would say talk to your RFMW rep and have them hook you up with the tunable filter guys.
Thank you. Is it really impossible to use your nonlinear FEMs with radio chipsets other than Wi-Fi chipsets?
Is it really impossible? I wouldn't say impossible, but you would have to do a similar DPD algorithm to correct the nonlinear FEMs. Or you could utilize it, and it depends on what kind of EVM requirements you have. Where's my EVM plot? Oh, it's way down there. Try about here. Yeah, here we go. So if I don't have a Y scale on here for proprietary reasons, but if this EVM, depending on what kind of modulation you're trying to do, if this EVM is acceptable, you absolutely can just use it in the nonlinear fashion. I would say a linear FEM is just going to have a better floor. It's going to use more power. But if you don't need that, right, Wi-Fi, if you think back to what those super tiny dots on that Wi-Fi 7 plot, right, that's just such a very, very tight EVM requirement to resolve that. If your technology doesn't have that same aggressive, I would say, EVM requirement, you could utilize a nonlinear FEM, no problem, and save that power consumption. If you do need it and you're able to implement a DPD correction algorithm, then that would be acceptable also. Or a linear FEM would be another way to go about it.
Great, thank you. How do you see the challenge of the potential coexistence with future N102 and N104 cellular license bands?
So I'm not familiar with those exact frequencies, but if they are in band, it needs to be handled at the protocol level. And there are efforts inside all of the standards bodies. Again, Wi-Fi is a very, very polite protocol. It won't talk over people, and it listens to very low energy to make sure it's not talking over people. There's a lot of negotiation between various technologies for in-band, where you're sharing a band, to try to get them to defer to Wi-Fi at the same level that Wi-Fi defers to other technologies, to make it a true first come, first serve. It's a complicated problem because, you know, how the power detection works and the time slicing is different across different technologies. So in-band needs to happen at the protocol level. You can't do it physically with filtering. Out-of-band stuff, Wi-Fi can coexist with any technology. And if there is impediments, then, hey, give me a call and we'll put a filter on there and we'll keep them separated.
Excellent. I understand that many of the chipset vendors have or are working on their own integrated FEMs. If so, why and when do they need third-party FEMs like yours?
Well, that's a complicated question that I'm not going to fully answer, but you always want a healthy, robust market with a lot of competitors to drive innovation. And Qorvo and frankly my competitors have been providing excellent front-end solutions that have powered the Wi-Fi industry for 20 plus years. And should chipset vendors choose not to work with us, that would hamper the ability to have innovation. And that's probably all I should say.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent point, a good question, and an excellent answer to that.
It would be essentially kind of like a monopoly, right? You always want to have competitive pressures to drive innovation and come up with better solutions.
Next question. The nonlinear FEM might give a better transmit mask. Do you have any data regarding mask improvement?
Mask improvement. So that is, that's probably with the data. We would need to get under an NDA to show the NDA. And that's actually more particular to the DPD algorithm rather than the FEM design. So it actually might be a question more for the chipset providers. That actually brings up one good point. We don't provide the DPD algorithm. We have to work with the DPD algorithms that the chipset providers implement and balance the proper amount of nonlinearity that they can resolve and fix and say, okay, with this amount of nonlinearity, how much power efficiency, how much power savings can Qorvo deliver within that budget of nonlinear, correctable nonlinearity? And that's where differentiation is still occurring. Again, DPD isn't just to fix a bad FEM. You need to get a trade-off for it, and that trade-off is power efficiency.
Good, thank you. 6 gigahertz spectrum availability is a hot topic in regulatory circles. Will upcoming changes in European regulations in 6 gigahertz change what filter solutions are appropriate for tri-band platforms?
So there's a lot of talk in Europe right now about releasing this upper part of the 6 gigahertz band. What we've seen is we actually did early, about 2 or 3 years ago, have a filter that was focused on Europe that was just the Uni 5. And what we found is most customers were always kind of looking to the future and thinking, well, that upper part of the spectrum might open up. So I want a filter that covers Uni 5 through 8 altogether. So I would say that right now, from a filtering technology standpoint, everybody is designing for a full 6 gigahertz band. And there's not much demand for a Uni 5 filter unless you're talking about people that want to split 5 from 7 and 8. So the European regulatory changes aren't really going to cause any churn in the Wi-Fi 7 filter market. There is some talk that Wi-Fi 8 or possibly 9 would release. You see here that you got channel 191 here, and channel 159 kind of cuts off the upper end. So you have 6 320 megahertz channel. There is some talk to try to get, you see here, you have a partial. So they want to add another 125 megahertz. That would add another 320 megahertz channel. And of course, that would be country by country, regulatory body by regulatory body. Should that happen, and again, we're talking years out, if it ever does happen, that would require a adjustment in filter technology to allow, because right now we're at, we're not worried about attenuation in, going up to 7250 megahertz. So we would have to make sure that the filters are designed to fully pass those bands and not cut it off.
Excellent, thank you. Here's a question that allows you perhaps to expand a bit on what you just talked about. Are there changes to expected filtering architectures for Wi-Fi 8?
Yeah, so that would be the one. So again, the Wi-Fi technology itself, Wi-Fi 8, isn't necessarily going to cause any filter change needs. But kind of tagging alongside Wi-Fi 8 is that extra 125 megahertz. And should that be released, we would have to make new filters to accommodate that additional spectrum. And it would be country by country. So obviously countries, in purple here, it's not going to make a difference because you don't have that 125 megahertz anyways. I think I could be wrong. Don't quote me on this. Maybe go to this website and figure it out. But right now, FCC US is the only country that I'm aware of that's talking about releasing that extra 125 megahertz. And that is not something that's going to happen, overnight. I think the discussion to release 6 gigahertz, I think was, that was about 6 or 7 years of relentless discussions and lobbying around the world, frankly. And, there's world radio conferences every 3 or 4 years to discuss that harmonized spectrum allocation. And all those bodies around the world need to come together to decide when to release any additional spectrum for unlicensed use.
And apparently Wi-Fi 8 is a hot topic because we just had a question come in that asks, do you see an extension of Wi-Fi 8 to millimeter wave spectrum?
I don't think that is under discussion right now in Wi-Fi 8. I believe the PAR just passed. I think they just put out a draft of 802.11, was it BN, which would be the predecessor to Wi-Fi 8. I don't believe that's in there, but those are public bodies, and I'm sure you can look at the notes and see. But I don't believe that's been part of the discussions.
Fair enough, thank you. How do BAW filters compare to other filtering technologies such as ceramic filters?
So that was a little earlier. I was talking about one of the key advantages of BAW, and that is the temperature sensitivity. BAW filters, and in particular Qorvo's specific BAW filter technology, is very good at keeping tight across temperature. So ceramics especially will swing a lot depending on temperature. And another advantage of the BAW filters, they're just way smaller. The ceramic filter, since it's a surface technology, they tend to be a little bigger. And so if you have, for compact designs, that can be a problem. I guess if you got a big surfboard, it's not as much of an issue. But the temperature compensation, the temperature sensitivity, that's always an advantage of BAW, regardless of the size.
Great. This question looks to be asking if there is a future with new bands over 10 gigahertz for Wi-Fi.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that question again?
Future new bands over 10 gigahertz for Wi-Fi?
So that's a kind of an industry protocol question. So that I'll leave that one to the IEEE people.
Good, fair enough. And I think in the interest of time, let me close out the webinar here. Jeremy certainly has answered a tremendous number of questions. I think we've gotten to most all of them. If not, we've captured all of them. And someone will get back to you afterwards. So let me thank Jeremy again for the presentation and for answering all those questions. And I'd also like to thank RFMW and Qorvo for sponsoring this webinar. As I mentioned, the webinar has been recorded and it'll be available to watch later today. You'll find it in the events section of the Microwave Journal website under the Archived Webinars and Events tab. So please feel free to watch it again or share it with any of your colleagues who may be interested. And remember, if you aren't already a subscriber to Microwave Journal, you can sign up on our website. The subscription is free to members of the industry. And let me close by saying thanks to everyone for joining us today. Please keep an eye out for upcoming webinars and panel sessions. And thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.